Hello, I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
And I'm Krylios, Team Racing Productions co host and moderator.
Joining us is Arzoo Malhotra. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Please share with our viewers a little about your background and who you are.
Sure. So, my name is Arzoo Malhotra. I am based in Washington, D.C. I'm Indian American and grew up in the Middle East. I am a stand-up comedian and a writer, but I also studied geography and currently work in climate change. So, that's a bit about me.
Wonderful. Well, please tell us about how and why you started performing.
Sure. So I feel like I've been writing and painting and creating since, since I was a 2, 3-year-old kid. And I feel like when I reached a place in my life where I was very stressed in my 20s, I wasn't sure what I wanted from life. I was kind of struggling in grad school. I found that part of myself again. So when I was 23, I got on stage, did my first set as a comedian, and realized the thing that gives me fulfillment is all the writing and painting and silly creative stuff I was doing before I went to school. So that's how my journey began.
That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. Now, what did you do creatively while you were living in the Middle East?
So yeah, I my family has been living in the Middle East for a while. And after grad school, I moved there to the desert because they need climate change stuff. Who knew? Um, so while I was working there, I also didn't want to give up my love for comedy or the performing arts, so I started doing stuff there. There is actually a wonderful burgeoning art scene across different Asian cities, including in places in the Middle East that people wouldn't typically expect to be art cities, right?
Mm.
There's also I got into theater and sketch and film because I think when you have these burgeoning up and coming scenes, there's more room for collaboration. It's just smaller, right? You know the people who are there, and we're all grinding, trying to build the 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 those spaces, right? So you end up doing things with each other. So I really enjoyed my time doing stand-up theater, all sorts of things there. And I think what's actually marvelous about where I was, which was Dubai, is 90% of the country is expat and people who are temporarily working overseas. And so there are scenes in English, in Hindi, in Arabic, in Urdu, in all of these languages. So you actually get to see the overlap of how
Mm.
cultures can actually build their own cultures and their own cultural spaces for the arts. So it was a really interesting place to get my start because you really are talking to audiences from around the world, right? You got to learn how to communicate, sometimes in many languages. So.
Certainly. I have a follow-up question.
Please.
How did you cater your comedy differently in the Middle East than you do for Western audiences?
That's such an interesting question. And I think that's you're framing it more elegantly than some people have asked, as you can imagine, the kind of bluntness in the question. And I think I approach it with the same nuance that I approach all audiences because I think we have this tendency, particularly in the West, to moralize people's hangups. But I think red lines and sensitivity exists everywhere. In the Middle East, it might be certain things. Here, it's certain things, right? There's a lot of sensitivity around questions of race. There's a lot of sensitivity about political partisanship. And so the way I make jokes here, I'm also catering to what audiences feel comfortable with. The funniest one was when I went to Australia. This is get no, I can't swear. Um, Seriously, what I was told. So I had a joke about Steve Irwin, like a throwaway small tag. And the host told me that if I made a joke about Steve Irwin, he would heckle me off the stage himself. Their red line is don't mess with Steve Irwin.
No,
Okay.
Mr. Steve
National
Irwin.
treasure. I get it. You got to be careful. Yeah. I'm not getting canceled over Steve Irwin. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down for something. No, no, I'm not going to even jinx that. Let's not. I don't want to get canceled.
You're not going down is the takeaway.
Correct.
But
Only
I think this
consensually.
This is a good transition to the next question, which is about how you've talked about how you like to disrupt expectations as related to comedy. So can you talk about that a little bit more and how and why you do that?
Sure. I think so. I've been doing stand up now for a little over 7 years, actually, almost 8 years, God. And from one part of it is creatively, as I've gone down my journey, I want to push myself, right? So, okay, I feel like I kind of understand. I haven't perfected, but at least I understand how a joke works, how a set feels, how to do that for 10, 30, 60, 75 minutes. I understand that. So now it's about creatively pushing myself. How can I make it different? How do I add theatrical elements or storytelling elements or new things to engage the audience? But the other thing is this year I did my third hour, a show called Masala, where I cooked food and used spices in the room so that I wasn't just telling jokes, but I was also creating a sensory experience for audiences to smell, to taste, to immerse. And what I learned from that and that experience is that creating more dynamic spaces is a wonderful way to create intimacy with the audience. And that built further where I was thinking about why, and food is a way of being kind and being empathetic and welcoming people, right? And I realized that this link that we have created between antagonism and comedy doesn't have to exist. I think there's this idea we have to be mean to be funny. And you can be. There is, that's the Don Rickles has perfected that, right? There is a version of that, but there's also humor and empathy. There's also humor in playfulness that's more gentle and welcoming. And so for me, I want to create spaces where audiences come in and are immersed, but immersed in a way that is stimulating and immersed in a way that's creatively fulfilling for me, but also immersed in a way that feels interesting and welcoming and draws them in. So yeah, for me, I've also realized, sorry, this is, I could talk about this for 30,000 hours, but everything has moved online, right? The industry has changed remarkably. And so why would audiences come to shows if they're getting the same things they're seeing
Mm.
online at shows? How do you create those experiences that reward audiences for showing up physically? How do you show that as generosity? And so for me, when I think about disruption, it's not this callous, cold, aggressive disruption that we usually think of. It's changing cold comedy rooms to being warm.
Oh, I love that
As
Mhm.
so
simply as
so
possible.
much. Love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
Thank you
course.
so much for sharing that.
I'm
Now,
glad you like it. Please tell
We're affirming you.
Tell us, Arzu, does your background in geography or climate change impact what you do creatively?
Oh yeah, I'm a big old nerd, and all my jokes are big old nerd jokes. That's, whether people like that or not. No, it's also like I think geography provides a really helpful way of analyzing the world because there's a saying everything happens somewhere, and near things are more related than far away things.
Mhm,
And so when you start thinking about that, it gives you a really good like mental framework to analyze connections and patterns. And making jokes is exactly that, right? It's creating those links between thought A and thought B that might be surprising or subversive or shocking, but you're making connections. And so I think being a geographer has given me that. It's also given me a little bit more nuance to how to approach different cultures because I don't think I would have been able to be as sophisticated with jokes that could work in different places if I didn't have some understanding of what the culture might be, what the sensitivities might be, how that would work. So I think also anything outside of the arts world makes your art better. I always get really, skeptical of people who've been in the industry and only do the industry and have no life outside of it. Because how are you going to make art that connects to people if you are not connected to people yourself? And so, yeah, I think geography just enriches me. So it makes my art better.
mhm,
That's also a very appealing answer to myself as someone who's neurodivergent or neurospicy, as my therapist likes to say. Um, it's such an interesting way of framing it, and it is so thoughtful.
But neurodivergent people, I think sometimes we overframe it as superpowers, but there are like ADHD. Someone told me that where people's brains stop cooking at 25, 26, for ADHD brains, it's 35, which means there's 10 extra years of neuroplasticity and learning.
Oof.
That's cool, right? That's a lot of pressure. That's 10 extra years of figuring stuff out, which is not fun. But, there's a beauty and a charm to that. And I think it just makes us richer.
Yep.
It makes you richer, honey.
It
Yeah.
makes you richer too.
Yes, it
Well,
does.
let's talk about what the future holds for you. What are your goals and aspirations? What's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
So many things. And I've been told I get excited about too many things, one could argue, as usually from the long list of things that I'm going to have now. I definitely want to continue my masala show. I did it in DC, Virginia, Maryland, and California. And I want to keep taking it maybe internationally next year and go to the Edinburgh Fringe again, which is quite the experience. I also want to produce more shows in DC. I realize there's such a fabulous, even in Baltimore and beyond as well, there's a fabulous art scene and fabulous alternative art scene. A lot of people doing really interesting things, and I want to create a space where artists can do weird things and they feel welcomed. They feel welcomed in a way I wasn't when I first came in, and a lot of people don't feel welcomed. So create that. Thirdly, one day I would like to create a venue. That's the big dream. I want to create an arts venue for small shows that has a wee cheeky little bar and community art space that I can now, as a geographer, create a space for people to inhabit to make art for themselves. So that's the big old long-term dream because I love this city and what it's given me as an immigrant, and I cherish the culture that made me feel so welcome. So if I can give back and I can make a space to platform the wonderful people here, I will bend over backwards to do it. So that's the big dream.
Certainly, certainly, certainly. That is certainly a fabulous dream to have. And so many artists here. I'm one. So if you ever need someone to, I'm
Always.
all in that space, a writer and creator. So if you ever need anybody to do a show with, I'm right here.
Oh my God, you saw it. You saw it here.
I
Now he has
did.
to do it. When I ask, he has to do it. Okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay.
certainly.
Okay.
All right. So,
Don't threaten me with a good time, baby.
Listen, I am always ready for a good time. I'm always up for a good time. So, for viewers who are also up for a good time, how can they learn more about you and what's upcoming? How can they reach out, support, do all the things?
Do all the things. So you can find me a couple of places. On Instagram, you can find my personal account is Arzoo Does Comedy. So that's the same account across Facebook, Instagram, as well as Linktree, which has a bunch of links to tickets and reviews and all sorts of stuff. On YouTube and on Gmail, I'm Arzoo the Comedian. I also have, I should have put this on there, silly, silly me. Zoo Animal Productions is the name of my production label where I kind of put on events that don't have my silly little face on it. So I'll be doing events quite often through that account. So you can find it linked in the Arzoo Does Comedy page. But come to shows, check out YouTube, check out the shows of other people as well. If you're not convinced by all of this, there's so many good shows across the city. So do consider supporting all of us.
I love that shine on yourself and shine on other performers. Viewers, please look in the description below for links. Arzoo, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been a joy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
To those watching, please follow Team Rayceen on social media and click around our YouTube channel to check out our other videos, vlogs, interviews, and more. While you're there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And viewers, thank you for watching.